Hi everyone, my name's Jo. If this is your first visit, welcome to the channel. Today's demo or tutorial is a nice, quick, simple little pair of earrings to make, and I'm calling them my daisy earrings. You can make them in any color, obviously. I've just gone with what I've got in my stash. The petals, I've used a 2-hole, so a double drilled bead. I've used IrisDuos, but you could do exactly the same pattern with SuperDuos, with GemDuos, anything that's got that double drilled hole and slightly elongated shape to give you that petal. So we're going to make these. So if I hold them up to my ear, you can see they're not massive, and they're just something that's a bit of fun to make. It's supposedly springtime here, but if you stepped outside right now, you wouldn't believe it. We start by having a quick look at the materials, and the very first bead that I've got on the left hand side here, which is my bead in the center of my earring, is called a DiscDuo, and it is double drilled. It has 2 holes through it, one on the right hand side, one on the left hand side. It's also like a squashed pea, so it's quite flat and forms that lovely disc shape. And for the earrings, you'll obviously need 2 if you're making 2 earrings the same. The color of this one is called Jade Picasso, one of my favorites. Then I've got the IrisDuos here, and as I mentioned, you could use SuperDuos, you could use GemDuos. They've also got 2 holes drilled in them, one through the top point and one through the lower point. And it's a good idea before you start your project to just poke your needle through both those holes, because sometimes the coatings that they use on beads can clog up the hole, and there's nothing more frustrating when you come to use that second hole and you can't get your needle through. So I always just make sure that both holes are clear. The color of those IrisDuos is jet bronze. Then I've got size 11 seed beads, and that's Duracoat Galvanised Champagne. And I've got some size 8 seed beads, which are Seafoam Green Matte Picasso. You need a shepherd's hook. You need a beading needle. I use a size 10 because it's got the biggest eye for threading. And I've got my beading thread. Now you can use your own chosen beading thread. I tend to stick with Fireline, and I tend to use the 6-pound most of the time. And then this little gadget here is just a thread zapper, which will end off any threads. We're going to start in the center and work towards the outside of our petals. So if you pop about 3/4 of a meter, 75 centimeters of thread onto your needle, you'll be absolutely fine. And we are going to start by picking up our DiscDuo and just pushing the needle through one of the holes, either the left or the right, it doesn't matter at this stage. And you're going to move the DiscDuo down towards the end of your thread. You just need to leave a little tail that you can tie off, which we're going to do fairly shortly. First beads I'm going to pick up are my size 11 seed beads, and I'm going to form this internal ring around the whole DiscDuo. So I'm going to do that by picking up 5 of my galvanized champagne, and I'm passing back through the very same hole. So the thread was exiting the top, and I came back through the hole from the bottom to the top. I'm now going to pass my needle down through the hole, the empty hole on the other side. And this is where we're going to just quickly tie our tail thread off to our working thread so that we don't have to think of it again. And I start by doing a regular knot, and the second time you take the thread through the loop once and through the loop a second time, and pull your threads really tight. Now, even though I came down through the empty hole, which is on this right hand side of my bead, tying the knot, I've come over to the left a bit, so I'm just going to pass back up through that empty hole so that I'm on that side. If your knot is right on the right there, you can just pull the knot straight into your DiscDuo. We're now going to come around this empty side here with another 5 of our size 11 seed beads. So far we will have added 10 in total. And again, I'm going to pass back through the same hole. thread is exiting this end and I'm passing through the needle from the opposite end. And I now need to join them up to make this neat circle around my DiscDuo. So for now, I'm just going to pass my needle back through all 5 of those beads that I have just added. So I've got one more to go through. There we go. Just making sure that those knots are really tight. And I'm going to get rid of my tail thread in a moment. To bridge the gap across there, you can see how these are sitting so much better around the DiscDuo than these ones. So these I've gone through twice and it's a much neater finish. But to jump across to the other side, we're going to pick up another 3 of our 11s. And we're now going to pass through all these 11s on the other side till we get to the top gap. So I need to come through another 2. And I'm now at the top ready to close that gap, and I'm going to pick up another 3. So we picked up 5, 5, 3 for the bottom, 3 for the top. So you've got 16 beads in total around your DiscDuo. Now you saw how neatly those first few were sitting when I'd gone through them twice. So if your beads aren't sitting in a perfect circle around your DiscDuo, just thread your needle through them, pulling your tension quite tight as you go, just to close up any gaps that may have formed. And when you're happy, you're ready to continue. So I'm just coming up to the other end again, and you can see now that that's a much tighter ring around my DiscDuo. So that's the end of your round. Ready to start round 2. I've got rid of my pesky tail, so I've got nothing to hold on to there now. So we're now going to start adding in our petals. And we're going to start by adding in our IrisDuos. You might be using SuperDuos, you might be using GemDuos, but whatever you're using, the first bead you're going to pick up is one of your 11s. And you're then going to make sure you've got your bead the right way. Like the IrisDuos have got a flat bottom and a sort of a domed top. So you want the IrisDuos to be sitting on your flower the correct way. So I want that domed top at the top. So I'm going to pass through the lower hole from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And I'm going to pick up one more 11. And I'm going to come back to this initial ring and I'm going to pass my needle through 2 of my size 11 seed beads. So my thread is exiting the top one and I've come backwards a little bit and I'm going through 2. And those 2 form a little cushioned base for my IrisDuo to sit on. And when you pull your threads through, you'll see that you've got your IrisDuo or your double drilled bead sitting the correct way. To add petal number 2, we need to pass our needle through the next 2 11s in that first round. So I'm just going up another 2. All the time just checking that your tension is quite tight around there. So again, I'm going to pick up one of my 11s, which is going to sit on the outer edge. Then I need another IrisDuo, so I'm passing again through that lower hole from the left to the right. Now if I move this down into position, that IrisDuo is going to be sitting between those 2 11s, and that 11 is already there from petal 1. So I'm not going to pick up an 11 for the other side, I'm just going to pass my needle down through the 11. I'm borrowing an 11 from the first petal. And I then need to take my needle across the 2 11s at the base of my IrisDuo. And then I need to move on through the next 2. So I'm passing through the next pair from round 1. I only want to go through 2. I don't want to go through 3. I'm only going through 1 now. There we go, through 2. All the while just giving that thread an extra pull to make sure it's tight. So we've got 2 petals. We're going to start our third one by picking up an 11. An IrisDuo, we're going through the lower hole from the left to the right. And once again, My 11 on the other side is already there. I'm going to borrow it from the petal we've just added. So pass your needle down through that 11, and then you need to scoot across the bottom 2 and then through the next 2 so that you are ready to start petal number 4. So you're going to go all the way around doing exactly what we've just been doing. I'm going to join you again to add in the last petal to show you how we add in number 8. So I've been working around that DiscDuo and I've just added my 7th petal, and I now need to just scoot across the next 2 from the first round that are sitting around my DiscDuo so that I'm ready to add in my 8th petal. And normally, don't want to get my thread caught, I would start by adding an 11, but I've got one there already, so I'm going to pop up through the 11 from the very first petal we added. Then I'm going to add in my final IrisDuo, and I'm going to come down through the 11, borrowing it from the 7th petal that we added. And again, I'm going to just come across those 2 11s at the base. So you've now got all 8 petals, and it's pretty floppy. It doesn't have much stability to it, but once we have beaded around each petal, it really does become a far more stable flower. So I've just come across the 2 at the bottom of number 8, and I'm going to come just across the next 2 as well. You don't have to. I'm just making sure that I've come past my connection point. So we're ready to start adding in all this gold with a bit of Seafoam Picasso on the edges around each petal, and that is round 3. And we're going to start by stepping up through that first little 11 that's sitting between 2 IrisDuos. Now this is where, if you're using SuperDuos or you're using GemDuos or DiamondDuos, you may have to alter the number of beads you pick up next, because they're slightly different size to the IrisDuos, and the distance from the lower hole to the top hole differs slightly. So if you're using IrisDuos, I'm going to now pick up 4 of my 11s. If you were using SuperDuos, it might be 3. But it will be a little bit of trial and error to see what sits there. And the way to do it is to just let them drop down and let them hug the outer edge of your shaped bead before you pass through that upper hole. So I'm just coming through the top there. So that was with 4. I'm now going to do a little picot topping to the top of each petal where we get this extra Seafoam Picasso color in. And that's with 3 beads, 1 11, 1 8, and 1 11. And I'm going to pass through that same hole, but my thread is exiting the point closest to me, and I'm passing the needle back through from the other side. And that forms my little edge on the top. And then I'm going to pick up another 4 of my size 11 seed beads. And I'm going to pass down through the 1 that sits between the 2 IrisDuos. Pull your threads in tight. And again, you need to scoot across the bottom. Scoot across the bottom pair underneath that first IrisDuo. And then to start going around the edge of the second one, I'm going to scoot across the second pair of 11s that are sitting around that IrisDuo. And then you want to pop up again through the 1 that's sitting in between. So we've got 1 petal complete, and we're now about to start our second one. But just as we borrowed the 11s that sit in between from the petal before, we're going to be borrowing the 11s along the edge from the petal before. But right now I'm coming along this top edge and I've got nothing to borrow there. I've come through the little 1 and I'm going to pick up 4 of my size 11s, and I'm going to pop through that empty hole of my IrisDuo. and I want to do the little picot topping, 3 beads, an 11, an 8, an 11, and pass back through that same hole. Now I'm going to be coming down this side, and this is what makes your design so much more stable, because by borrowing some of these 11s, you're going to connect the petals together a lot better and make the whole design a lot more solid and stable. We're going to pick up just 2. Normally we would pick up 4, which means we need to come down through the first 2 we added on this side, including the little one. I think I've gone over 1 there, so let's just come back. So that first one at the very top was part of the 3 that formed the picot top. Come down another 2 because you've picked up 2 on your needle, and then go through the 3rd one, the 4th one, and the little one that sits in between the 2 IrisDuos. So you're coming down through 3, and when you pull it through, it just makes everything more secure. Again, you will need to scoot across the bottom pair under your petal 2, and then you will need to come across the pair that sit underneath petal 3. Before popping up the 111 that sits between number 3 and 4. And you're going to start again. Each time across the top edge you're going to be picking up 4, doing your little picot topping, and then just picking up 2 and borrowing from the petal before. So we pick up 4, 2, 3, 4, come through that empty hole, do our picot topping of 3 beads, an 11, an 8, an 11, and pass back through there. And this time, coming down this side, we're only picking up 2. So if we look at the petal before, the top gold 11 was part of my picot edge. Then I've got number 1 and 2 there. I've got number 1 and 2 on my needle. I need to go down through numbers 3, 4, and the little one that sat in between the 2. All the time pulling your thread through tightly so that the beads frame those IrisDuos neatly. And you're going to continue moving the whole way around. When I get to doing number 8, the petal number 8, I'll come back to you to show you how to, because we'll be borrowing from petal 7 and from petal 1 to join them together. As you worked around your flower, connecting all the petals together, you would have felt the whole design stabilizing. So we've just got to come around the top of our 8th petal, and we've been borrowing coming down through 3 when we come down on the lower edge. So we're going to start by moving up through 3 on this top edge. Then I'm going to pick up 2, because remember the first one was the little seed bead that we added in round 2, sitting between the 2 petals. So we've come up through that one, and then the first 2 that we're picking up of 4. So we've picked up another 2, and we're going to come through that top hole, and we need to do the little picot topping. So an 11, an 8, an 11, back through the same hole, and we're just picking up 2 and coming down through 3 on the other side. And that is your little flower and round 3 complete. And all we need to do now is add in our shepherd's hook. If things are puckering up a little because you've been pulling so hard on that tension, just pop the design down on your bead mat and give it a little press down with your fingers, and it will just flatten everything out. So to add in your shepherd's hook, you want to pass through your beads until you're exiting an 8 at the tip of one of the petals. Just bring that in. Now, it's the same as adding a clasp. There are no rules you can do it to suit your tastes and how you want your design to look, but I'm going to show you how I did it, and this is a fairly simple way. I'm just going to use my size 11 seed beads, and I've picked up 3, and then I'm going to come through the loop of my shepherd's hook and back through the first 11 that sits closest, coming back down through that first one and pulling tight. And I now need to pick up 2 because I've come through 1 before passing through that size 8 seed bead from the opposite side. So that gives me a neat attachment above that petal of my shepherd's hook. And now I just need to end off my thread. So I'm going to come through the other one on the side. And now I'm going to do a double half hitch knot just to end off my thread, which means I'm coming underneath the thread bridge between the 11 and the IrisDuo. I'm forming a loop and I'm passing my needle through the loop. That's called a half hitch. And to make it a double, you've just got to do it again. So coming underneath the thread bridge, form a loop, pass your needle through the loop and pull tight. And then I'm going to pull that knot that I've just tied, that double half hitch knot, into the IrisDuo by passing my needle through the hole. And I can then end off my thread, slip my needle off, and I've got my earrings, my pair of daisies, all completed. So there you have it. If you have any questions, please pop them in the comments below and I will answer them. Might take me a little while because if you're in another part of the world, I might be sleeping when you send me a question. If you've enjoyed the video, thumbs up would be much appreciated. And if you haven't subscribed yet, it's not a cost to you. It just means that the next time I upload something new, you'll get a little notification to say there's something new to watch, a new design, a new technique or something like that. So thank you so much for watching and I'll see you again soon. Bye.